This is an apple from my garden. Isn't that wonderful to eat fruit grown at your doorstep? It is beautiful indeed, but often it does not work like this. We live in a globally interconnected world. You can buy fruit and many other things, of course, from all over the place, from all over the globe. The spaces and places in which we live are made of relations that cross all scales. Degrowth, an academic concept as much as an activist slogan, proposes that our human metabolism, production, and consumption must be reduced selectively, equitably, and in alliance with others for a pluriversal alternative, in order to live well and sustainably. To relocalize the economy has always been a central strategy in this context, and there are indeed good reasons for it. If you think of the injustices of colonial and post-colonial relations of dependency, unequal ecological exchange, and the impacts of multinational industries and logistics. But being in this globally interconnected world, can we imagine to simply transform all the places in which we live into locally autonomous bioregions or something similar? To me, this seems an unrealistic and not very helpful strategy for a spatial politics of degrowth. And I think we need to think of more sophisticated answers to the challenges that globally interconnected geographies pose. I have decided to approach this challenge through the study of two cases of global geographies of commodities, because I want to reflect about what degrowth can say about how such relations could and should evolve in order to make them more just and more sustainable. The first case is a typical example of capitalist globalization, fruit grown for instance in Chile, sold in Europe and in all the world. So far, it is clear that from a degrowth perspective, flows of commodities as much as the human metabolism in general are subject to limits. And, as we have exceeded planetary boundaries, they need to be reduced, but not necessarily disappear, I would argue. To export fruit or coffee or something else can be fundamental for small producers and communities to diversify their economies and to have access to a sufficient income. But typical capitalist commodity chains are fraught with problems. They are full of injustices and power imbalances, for example between small producers and multinational export companies. They favor specialization and the use of ecologically and economically unsustainable monocultures. Thus, the modalities of how these connections work needs to change according to principles of cooperation, solidarity, and ecological sustainability. Of course, I am not the first to say this, and my second case looks at fair trade coffee grown by cooperatives in Central America, sold in Europe by a degrowth-oriented association. There are certainly limits to such an approach, last but not least its isolated character. But I want to understand how far existing projects have gone in the direction of building a global commodity trade that is compatible with degrowth values. All this to contribute to develop a spatial politics of degrowth that does not think exclusively about the local scale, but operates across all scales.